Commander Zixthak stood before the mixed group of cadets in the Galactic Defense Academy's Advanced Weapons Training Facility, his forearms gesticulating with practiced authority. The towering Corthanian's chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights as he surveyed the assembled students. Andromedans with their crystalline features, sleek Voidborn with their liquid metal appendages, and in the back corner, 3 humans who looked almost primitive by comparison. "Today we examine the ZX-9000 plasma rifle," Zixthak announced, his voice resonating through the translator collar wrapped around his elongated neck. The pinnacle of military engineering, crafted by the finest minds of 17 different species. He hefted the weapon with obvious reverence, its blue energy core pulsing rhythmically. This weapon requires a minimum of 4 manipulator appendages to operate effectively, advanced neural interfacing capabilities, and electromagnetic sensitivity that only evolved species possess. His compound eyes fixed on the humans with undisguised contempt, which is why certain primitive species will find themselves naturally disadvantaged in modern warfare. Sarah Chen, a stocky woman with calloused hands and grease under her fingernails, shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Beside her, Marcus Thompson, a former engineer from the Luna colonies, clenched his jaw. The third human, Dr. Elena Vasquez, merely observed with the patient expression of someone who had heard such comments before. "The ZX-9000, Zixthak continued, is impossible to disassemble without specialized tools. Its quantum-locked components require precise electromagnetic manipulation, something beyond the capabilities of species that still rely on crude mechanical implements." He gestured dismissively toward the humans. "Tools like the barbaric hammer, or the primitive screwdriver that humans seem so fond of." A few Andromedans chuckled, their crystalline faces refracting the light in amusement. The Voidborn remained expressionless, as always. "In fact," Zixthak's voice grew more contemptuous, "I challenge anyone using only the pathetic tools that humans brought with them to even scratch the surface of this weapon's casing, let alone disassemble it." He placed the rifle on the central table with a metallic clang. "Any takers?" The humans exchanged glances. Sarah started to reach for her toolkit, but Elena placed a gentle hand on her arm and stood instead. "I'll take that challenge," Elena said quietly. Zixthak's mandibles clicked in what passed for Corthanian laughter. "Fascinating. And what primitive implement will you use? A rock, perhaps?" Elena reached into her pocket and withdrew a small bent piece of metal. "A paperclip." The entire room erupted in various forms of alien laughter. Even some of the more diplomatic species couldn't suppress their amusement. Zixthak's exoskeleton practically vibrated with mirth. "A paperclip," he wheezed through his translator. "Oh, this is precious. Class, observe as I demonstrate the vast gulf between evolved intelligence and primitive tool use." Elena walked calmly to the table, ignoring the continued laughter. She examined the weapon for a moment, running her fingers along its sleek surface. The ZX-9000 was indeed a marvel of engineering. Seamless construction, no visible joints or fasteners, its surface smooth as glass. "Interesting design," she murmured, then straightened the paperclip with practiced efficiency. What happened next would be discussed in military academies across 17 star systems for decades to come. Elena inserted the straightened paperclip into what appeared to be a decorative indent near the weapon's grip. With a soft click, a hidden panel slid open, revealing internal mechanisms. The room fell silent. The manufacturers assumed that any intelligent species would immediately recognize this as a maintenance access port, Elena explained conversationally, her voice carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. "It's actually a standard interface design, dating back to pre-warp human electronics. We call it a reset button." She pressed something inside with the paperclip's tip. The weapon's energy core immediately began powering down, its blue glow fading to nothing. "Of course, without power, the quantum locks disengage as a safety feature," she continued, now using the bent end of the paperclip as a tiny lever. With surgical precision, she began separating components that had appeared fused moments before. "Emergency maintenance protocols. Every weapon system has them, or soldiers would die when their gear inevitably broke down in the field. Piece by piece, the impossible to disassemble ZX-9000 came apart in Elena's hands. The power core, the targeting matrix, the plasma chamber, all separated cleanly using nothing but a paperclip and an understanding of engineering principles that transcended species. "The thing about humans," Elena said as she laid the final component on the table, "is that we've been making and fixing things for longer than most species have had spaceflight. We understand that anything built can be taken apart, because anything that can't be repaired is useless." Zigzag stared at the disassembled weapon, his compound eyes wide with disbelief. "Impossible. The quantum locks are designed to keep out brute force, not intelligent problem-solving," Elena finished. "Your weapon is beautifully engineered, Commander. But its designers made the same mistake you just did. They assumed their way was the only way." Sarah stood and pulled a small screwdriver from her toolkit. "Want to see us put it back together?" Within minutes, the three humans had reassembled the weapon using nothing but basic tools and mechanical knowledge. The ZX-9000 hummed back to life, its blue core pulsing as strongly as before. Marcus hefted the restored weapon. "You know, Commander, you were right about one thing. This does require advanced understanding to operate effectively." He handed it back to the stunned Corthanian. "But intelligence isn't about having the fanciest tools or the most appendages. It's about knowing that every problem has a solution. You just have to be creative enough to find it." As the class filed out in subdued silence, Elena paused at the door. "Oh, and Commander, that paperclip? We invented it in 1867. Sometimes the old ways work just fine." The door closed behind the humans, leaving Zigzag alone with his perfectly functional weapon and a new, uncomfortable understanding of why humanity had earned its place among the stars despite their seemingly primitive origins. After all, any species clever enough to conquer space with chemical rockets and stubborn determination was probably clever enough to figure out how to take apart a plasma rifle with office supplies. The paperclip, bent but unbroken, lay forgotten, on the table, a small metal testament to the dangerous ingenuity of the human mind.